If there's one man who can help, if there's one man who can help, it's the man coming in here right now.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 Fan Guide. It is basically a podcast series in which I go through every episode. If you include the movie, that's roughly 52 episodes, so about an episode for every week of the year, though usually I try to get these up around Friday around 9 o'clock. I might miss a week or two here or there, but sometimes I'll double up like I am this week. Today we're going to be discussing episode 16, That Which Is Lost, and episode 17. In episode 16, Armstrong basically takes the Elric brothers back to Resin Bull and they start their journey there. Meanwhile, back in town, Lust and Gluttony attack Dr. Marco because, as is obviously implied, they might be in cahoots with somebody in higher power. They torture Marco and get him to reveal the location of his research on the Philosopher's Stone. And then that's it for Marco because they kill him in this version, which is really a shame because I like the character a lot. He makes a really strong impact in the series here, and it's one of the benefits of the manga and Brotherhood that Marco gets to play a bigger role. On the train to Resin Bull, back on the train, Al actually was put into the cargo hold with the animals and is accidentally dropped off at a different stop, so he's temporarily separated from Ed and Armstrong. Obviously, Ed gets really upset about this because he doesn't want to lose his brother and kind of lashes out at Armstrong, saying he doesn't really trust him because, he knows about what happened back in Ishbal, and he's really not trusting anybody that was involved in that, any authority figures or especially anybody in the military, which clearly hurts Armstrong's feelings. He's searching for his brother in the small town when this young girl actually manages to take his leg away because she wants to try to use it to give it to her grandfather, and this kind of leads to a meeting between him and the grandfather, and they kind of discuss their experiences. Ed kind of brings up the possibility of getting automail, but the grandfather says that he doesn't really want it, that he fought in the Ishbal War, and he lost a piece of himself there literally, and probably figuratively as well. And he says that loss of something, though, kind of serves as a reminder to him, and also kind of helps him essentially grow as a person and consider and reflect on his life, but also kind of gives him some time to really focus on his grandchildren. Meanwhile, Al is actually taken up and thought of as, a suit of armor that can be used in a gang warfare, essentially, by this young rapscallion that abducts him. But Al manages to basically scare him by saying he's a possessed suit of armor, and so that kind of doesn't work out. And the two stories do eventually coincide when it turns out that this is also the grandson of the soldier that we met in the house. Everybody's reunited, and Ed realizes that he needs to apologize to Armstrong, and then they head on back to Resin Bull. Episode 17, House of the Waiting Family, is the Elrics and Armstrong basically going to Resin Bull. They meet up with Panako there, and they decide, okay, yes, of course, they will help Ed repair his arm, and we find out that it's been a long time since they've been there, but they get to spend a few days back in their old home. They kind of reunite with some of the villagers there, and we realize it's actually been a long time since they've been home. They really have avoided it. The brothers kind of think back about their childhood and almost kind of question really, if there are any good memories there. And Al starts to kind of notice that he's not really sure about some of his memories, like he doesn't recognize some of the people in the village. But Armstrong kind of cuts in and says, these boys act like they don't really have a sense of family, but they really do with Winry and Panako there. So on that note, Ed gets his arm replaced, slightly lighter, so quicker, but therefore easier to shatter. And then, of course, he uses his alchemy to repair Al, and they head back to Central to see if they can find Marco's research. Episode 16, That Which Is Lost, is an episode that I actually think is rather important because I actually put up a video on this on my old website, which I think had to get taken down at some point, or maybe it got accidentally taken down. Because this episode contained what I said was my favorite Fullmetal Alchemist moment, and I don't know if it really is now, but it still is one of my favorite moments, especially for kind of almost a bottle episode. There was something in that brief conversation between Ed and the elderly soldier that really always kind of resonated with me, and I felt was kind of one of the main themes of the show, because the soldier sort of poses the question to Ed, like, okay, you and your brother are trying to find a way to get your bodies back and get some semblance of normalcy. Also, I guess, kind of was a way to sort of make up for what they did, make up for their own mistakes. And he poses the question of, well, okay, But what happens when you actually get those things? What will you do after that? Like, you spend so much of your time focusing on your goals and basing your whole life around that. In a weird way, that loss and has kind of instigated a way for them to continue going on and moving forward and working towards something, which I think kind of says something not just about loss and how loss can be a reminder of things to help sort of reflect on our own mistakes and just our overall experiences, and realize that the things we go through, even though there is loss and difficulty, that's kind of something that helps us grow and sort of become who we are, and possibly improve as people, theoretically, or at least become more full, richer people, which I think is something that resonates with me more now than it did maybe when I first watched this episode many years ago, although I still kind of felt those words had a lot of significance to me. I also really liked his line about how the point of a dream is that it was a dream. It's a fantasy. It's not really necessarily meant to be obtained. So, and it's kind of makes sense too in terms of pursuing goals, that you really do have to kind of consider what is going to be the next goal. It's always like kind of looking for something that's abstract, and maybe some things are sort of unattainable, and it's really just the pursuit of it and the growth that comes from it. It's the journey, not the destination, is essentially what I was kind of felt was yet another lesson wrapped up in that conversation. Watching it again, I actually felt like the conversation was poignant, but I wish it was a little bit longer. I just felt like they could have delved even deeper, but cover some of the themes in the show. But I don't know from my memory if they really go into that particular theme as much in future episodes. But that really covers my favorite Full Metal moment. Really, is that conversation quite easily. House of the Waiting Family is also a really good episode because it really kind of fleshes out the Elric's relationship with Panako and Winry, the Rock Bells, and really that sense of home that they left, and also that innocence that they had, and of course going over how tough they were, but reminding us they are still kids and they've had a lot of growing up to do. Just kind of seeing a more relaxing episode is really kind of heartwarming. It's just a very nice, relaxing change of pace, but also very thoughtful as we're kind of seeing those questionings of Al as he kind of develops that big crisis he's going to go through for his sense of identity shortly. I also like the fight between Ed and Al here. Towards the end, it kind of always established to me was interesting. Ed's probably always been the more accomplished alchemist, but he said he's never been able to beat Al. So Al is actually the better hand-to-hand fighter, which I always thought was an interesting detail. So they both have their strengths once again. And that would probably be my favorite Full Metal moment there. I'll say as far as my ratings go, That Which Is Lost is a good episode, but I kind of think the whole gangland subplot, which doesn't really go quite as far, even though it does add for some comedy, it isn't really delved into as much, and I think the episode overall isn't the strongest. I mean, the little moment with Armstrong has some heavy drama, and of course the conversation Ed has with the elderly soldier is excellent stuff, but the episode overall just feels kind of okay. I'd probably leave it with a 6, I'll admit. I think House of a Waiting Family is a 7. I'd say it's definitely better. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but it's just a really relaxing, nice episode. All right, well, those are my thoughts on those episodes. Please let me know if you have any comments, or can mention something that I may have forgotten. Please do. I'll try to get more of these up roughly on Fridays around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, though admittedly sometimes there's a week or two break in the schedule. But hopefully the schedule will be opening up, and I might even pump these out even more in the next couple months. We shall see. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening, and remember, stay magical.